last-minute meeting with the president of Mexico just hours before he's set to give a major speech on immigration that will happen later today.
So what can we expect? Senior Trump advisor Jack Kingston is here to weigh in. Could softening his stance on deportation cost him support? Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Anna and Heather.
And some of his surrogates have said he's not actually changing his stance. He's just changing his delivery on this. Is he going to put this to rest that he's not softening his stance? And is he going to be deporting the arbitrary number of 11 million illegal immigrants or not?
I think, number one, he's going to put his critics to rest. And I want to point out that President Nieto invited both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump to come in there. Hillary Clinton is still vetting it, listening to her own advisors. Is this a good move? Spending her time in Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, just like he went to Milwaukee, just like he went to Louisiana, he's going to where the action is. And tonight, after meeting with President Nieto, he will be on the Arizona border talking about immigration. And he's going to talk about border security, building a wall, no amnesty, no legalization. He's going to talk about no sanctuary cities. He's going to talk about E-Verify and protecting American jobs, because when employers hire illegals, American wages erode. In the meantime, Hillary Clinton is pro-amnesty and pro-open borders, and I think the difference between the two candidates is startling. And I believe that what we're going to do, not just grow our own supporters, but we're going to have a lot of independents say, you know what, Donald Trump is willing to take on one of the toughest issues that has been facing America in decades, and that's leadership.
Well, sir, you can certainly see how it's been confusing to a lot of Americans, especially his core supporters. He talked about softening his stance on immigration. He told that to Sean Hannity last week. And then he talked about hardening it, and he's talked about some other things. So it's confusing to a lot of people. Aren't you worried that potentially could hurt your base? And then when you look at this poll, and the question is, who do you trust more to handle immigration issues? Clinton gets 53% and Trump gets 40%. How do you explain that?
Well, there are a lot of polls, as you know, and they're moving all over the place. But the reality is, if you look at the Democrat and the Republican candidates in both primaries, there's only one candidate who has driven this issue, and it's Donald Trump. And I would say he has been consistent, particularly in enforcing existing laws. And what we have seen, both with President Obama and President Bush, is inconsistency. And Donald Trump is willing to face this.
And Jack, you're saying that you're being consistent and that Donald Trump is being consistent. So is he going to be consistent with what he said? From my producer's notes here in November, he said he will use a deportation force to eject 11 million people in the United States illegally. Is that still what we will be hearing from him tonight?
He will address that. Remember, we have a deportation force. It's called ICE. President Obama has used it to already deport 500,000 people during his presidency. So the reality is the mechanism is in place. And when you start enforcing existing laws, and when you say no amnesty, and you just go down the line with E-Verify and all the other things, building a wall, secure the border, and no legalization, that number of 11 million is going to be reduced. And what he wants to do is start with the bad actors first, and then figure out how do you do this in the most orderly fashion. And I believe that's what the people in America want to see, is some action on this.
And some critics, though, are saying that it's very similar, actually, to President Obama's plan. So we'll hear a lot more about that later today as he gives that immigration speech. I know you've been advising him. Jack Kingston, former congressman from the state of Georgia, great to see you, and thanks so much for getting up with us today.
Thanks a lot.